and then you had to just go have lunch and chat with your friends. So we're going to try to stitch it up a little bit. No. And we want to keep in mind, like even this whole idea of psychology, psyche, the study of the psyche, we say in Greek, psyche. And you ask most people on the street, like, what does study of the psyche, psyche mean? And most people will say what? Study of the mind. But what does it mean? Psyche, study of the soul. So I don't want us to put psychology in a different category, like, okay, that's psychology. I don't know if I'm into psychology. This is about our journey, this is about our story, and this is about where we are with our story. And the whole purpose of psychology would be certainly in secondary position, but gives us some insights and skills as we're in the life of the church, because he is the great physician, and he uses reality, sometimes reality is science, to give us insights on how we could heal. So I want to, and I just have a couple minutes because I went long, nothing new with me, but so I just have a couple minutes to wrap up this portion. Let me say a couple things. And in a moment, by the way, we're going to take a peek at the parable of the prodigal son. And the reflective question is going to be, and I do believe we can get a lot of answers. We don't have a lot of time to unpack it, but in what way do we see the story, the parable of the prodigal son happening right here? Okay, now, before we get to, we're going to ask that in a moment. In what way do we see the story of the prodigal right here in that picture and with those dynamics? But before we get to that, I want to just mention, because I left off saying we understand the research on what happens in the family system, and we also know that we can relate to that to varying degrees. Sometimes we don't even know what to label to put on it. We might just say, my mom seemed removed, or my dad seemed angry, or they seemed tense, or whatever it is. We may not know if there was a diagnosis involved. That doesn't matter. We know that for any child, what kind of shakes the system is felt, and very often can block our connection to ourselves or bring on these roles. Now, we also want to say, because someone said something very insightful a minute ago, and that is that she was looking at this as her parents being the children and what her parents grew up with that could help explain why they showed up as the parents they were to her. See, this is ancestral sin, if you will. This is all over the scriptures in terms of even Adam and Eve had a bit of a problem in the garden, last I read. And because there was a disconnect between them, yeah, God, this woman you gave me. And fast forward to their children, and sure enough, they had a division there as well. So they divided themselves from God. It divided them in how they treated themselves as a couple. And sure enough, Cain divided from Abel because he compared himself so much, maybe compromised in being okay with himself, and he compared, didn't measure up with his brother, and had to get rid of his brother. So all kinds of ancestral stories in the scriptures, and this is just a snapshot of that. Now, if we play those roles, and we're just using those, typically, if we don't have any insight on those roles, we'll take those roles into any system we're a part of. So if you are an athlete and you join a team, it would be likely that you would play out that role on that team. And if you're the lost child on that team, you might let the other person kick the ball. If you're the rebel, you might be the one who didn't like the way that went on the field and you get into a fight. Or you might be the one so gifted in athletics that your self-esteem comes from and is determined by the score of the game and how you did. But let me ask you this. If we took this science, behavioral science, and the patterns that exist in these survival roles, and we didn't have it checked at all, and then we'd say it plops into the life of a church, that these dynamics can play out in the life of a parish. What do you think about that? So it's so interesting. Isn't that kind of interesting, though? Because we're here to be healed, but sometimes like, put the healing aside, I'm going to play out my role. What would it be like if a role was played out, and let's say as a Christian, you are the all-star Christian? What would that mean in your relationship with God? How would you do your spiritual life if you're the all-star? Yeah.
You have a hard time trusting
So the all-star, in any of these cases, we'd say, how was trust developed or not developed? That could be a question. Then you get into this whole trust God thing. It may seem really appealing. It actually may be hard. And we might fall into, I'm going to be the perfect Christian by being perfect. And it could be that, and that's what, even for people that come into the church and go to confession, that's pretty awesome, because it's kind of like, oh, you mean I have to share things that don't come from the wonderful stories from the life of the all-star? Yeah, talk about conversion, baby, right? Or if you're the lost child and you're in the life of the church, you might think my place in the church is just to get out of the way. Let me just melt into the back. And again, the sacraments, now notice this, what's beautiful about the sacraments, it invites, remember these red hearts that were blocked out? It actually starts unblocking the heart and invites the heart to show up to the sacraments. So this idea of this journey back home is the theme of the prodigal. Now, if you think about the prodigal and you'd say, how was the prodigal found there? What would you come up with? I mean, I'm throwing that at you. I'll give you 2 seconds here, not much time. But if you say, where is the parable of the prodigal? How does that relate to what we drew over there? Okay, Rebel. What's that? Okay, so he's the one. Okay, so then he becomes, the prodigal becomes the dysfunctioning one. Very good. Now notice the arrows. Remember our arrows? We leave our true home. The prodigal left his true home and went to find his well-being where? To a foreign land and attached to a citizen of that country. That's a different way of saying addiction. Or that's a different way of saying, I'm going to find my well-being outside myself. Or that's a different way, as it says in the parable of the Good Samaritan, that the Samaritan went from Jerusalem to Jericho. We start with our holy birth, being made in the image and likeness of God, and then we go into the world, and we fall into all kinds of ditches, thinking we're going to find it out there in the world. So I want us just to appreciate, maybe never quite hear this parable the same way again, to realize that when we leave our heart, we become the prodigal. We're trying to find everything that Father has outside and away from the house of the Father. And this idea of Great Lent would be, and something that Father Tom's going to unpack later when he talks about the return to the Father, but it says something that is basically the invitation of this whole story and our story. It says in the parable of the prodigal, when he returned to himself, he turned toward the Father. Nolan shared that when certain things that I used to rely on are taken away, then I had to keep looking for something that can't be taken away. And sure enough, that's the famine in the story. And the pigs are eating better than him. And he has to come to himself. He has to look at the reality of what's going on in his life. Self-reflection happens when we're in reality. Self-delusion, the fathers teach that the only place that God doesn't exist is in self-delusion, in delusion. He doesn't show up in fantasy. It's where the devil goes. And guess what? He invites us into delusion all the time. But this, if we could picture this idea of coming to yourself, like the prodigal, coming to yourself, and then I turn toward the Father. Or we could say, connecting with yourself, and I turn toward the Father. Connecting to yourself, and I could connect with others. Connecting with yourself, and then connection starts becoming a real thing because I'm in reality of myself. I'm not in delusion of myself. And so as we think about this journey back home, then we'd say this Lenten retreat is trying to encourage that journey back home to your own heart. The journey back home to the house of the Father. And so whenever we think about that prodigal, we don't think about some radical guy that went rogue. We think about, Lord, help me stay in my heart today. Otherwise, I might be joining myself to the citizen of something else that isn't about the house of the Father. So I've got one quote I want us to look at. Oh, yeah, that's great. And it was from a couple of guys out there, and I were talking a little bit about, it was Bo and I were talking about this quote. I was talking about the deep heart, and it comes from this book called Remember Thy First Love, which is from Archimandrite Zacharias. And Zacharias was the spiritual son of a guy named Saint Sophrony. And Saint Sophrony was the spiritual son of Saint Silouan. And so I don't know how it even happened, but I connected, because I had left Orthodoxy for like a good 10 years. Didn't mean to, but did. And so I wasn't acquainted with like the lives of the saints and things like that. So as an adult, it was the year 2000, and I came across the life of Saint Silouan, and it like blew my mind. His life story is worth reading. Saint Silouan the Athonite, big blue book. So his spiritual grandson is this guy who's the abbot at St. John the Baptist Monastery in Essex, England. And his writings are so profoundly impacted by Silouan and Sophrony. So I'm reading this book, because actually a couple of guys on our family wellness team encouraged me to do that. And I came across this page, and I stayed on I decided, and that's this page. And I ended up staying on the page for a year. Like literally for a year. I couldn't turn the page because I wasn't done with, this page wasn't done with me. Okay, so I want to share this page, and he talks about the deep heart, and so absorb it as you can, but I'd say as we are on this journey back home to our own hearts, as we realize that we have patterns that show up that actually can be shy on appreciating the hearts of others. Like if I'm in survival mode, I might not be that great at listening skills. If I'm in survival mode, I might not be that great at empathy of what someone else is suffering. If I'm in survival mode, I might be too quick to rescue you and not rescue myself. There's all kinds of things we can get off course because of these patterns, and the invitation is this idea of returning to God made you to be, returning to your deep heart. And so the opening line on this got me when it said our entire struggle in this life is aimed at discovering our deep heart. Because this is the place where God manifests himself. Above all, we aim to uproot the passion of pride within us, because this is the passion which buries the heart, leaving us feeling as if we no longer had a heart. Pride stops us from loving, says Saint Silouan. Indeed, true love proceeds from humility. I love this line. For the humble man has room in his heart for God and his fellow men. Now, keep in mind that idea, pause right there. The humble man has room in his heart for God and his fellow men. As we connect with ourselves in our deep heart, we make room for connection with other people and God, which is our focus for the weekend. As long as we are proud, we will be separated from our heart, maybe survival mode, separated from our heart. We will live only according to our little minds, totally missing the ultimate purpose of coming into this life. And we'll end up as dry leaves blown about aimlessly by the wind. If, however, we succeed at finding our deep heart, then our mind will drop anchor not only in the heart, but also in the depths of heaven, where our life is hid with Christ in God, and God will come and make his abode in us. May God help us as we descend into our deep heart. And sometimes as we're descending, we do encounter some of the pain and some of our story. And as Jesus helped the woman descend into her heart, why and how? Because he came fully present in his heart. So we see that his ability to be in his heart helped heal her. Your ability to be in your heart will heal many around you. And what's our premise? Acquire a spirit of peace, and thousands around you will be saved. And so with that invitation to deep heart, Father Tom, I'm going to pass it over to you guys. Go.
And Deacon Mark has put a few of our favorite quotes in the back of his book. So if you too want to spend a year with this passage,
Yes, do it.
It is there for you.
Or your money back. It'll help, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So,
Do you need one of these? Keep going.
Anyone else will ever do is exactly what George said. How are we going to be still enough to descend into our heart so we can respond from that place, that holy place, authentically. Pretty simple. And the beautiful things that George has said to us is filling our minds, but what's God asking you as you settle in your heart to embrace and live? And as I was thinking about what I was going to share, I thought of Adam and Eve. And I think of, we got to go back to the story. And the story was, everything was pretty nice. Everything was beautiful. And we're not going to go into the whole bit of what happened, why they disobeyed, but they did their own thing. They tried to become God without God. That's all our problems. It's your problem, my problem. So they partook of the fruit, and they're walking around thinking like everything's cool. Like you all are walking around like everything's cool. Like George said, we have money, we have a roof over our head, you got your job, you went through that crisis. That crisis kind of formed you because it opened a space to actually dig in your heart. And whenever I see people and they're hurting, I always say, they're having troubles, I say, where is the pain in your life? If we can slow down and respond, where is the pain? So they're walking around in the kingdom, in paradise, and God asks three words, a question. And he asks you and me as we settle in our hearts. Can you put that slide back before? No. And God will come and make his abode in us. The deal is, the Orthodox deal is, God is within us. Our job is to take the speck out of our eyes so we can discover that. And the only way we can do that is we find a way to prayerfully become still. And what happened to Adam and Eve, they were asked a simple question. You know what that question was? Yeah. And he's asking you today, what's your name? Laura. Where are you? And if I went one by one with all of you, you all have your stories. And if you be authentic with me, and we lean in, like George said, and not just drive by, we would be having Pascha here, in the moment. Don't you want that? That's what we're running away from, because we don't have enough people to love us enough to say, let's stop here in this place so I can delve into your heart. So what happened is God said, where are you? You know what happened to him? And this is what happens to us. There's a disconnection between his head and his heart, and he got shocked, and he had a decision to make whether he's going to be authentic, real, or stay connected. And here's our problem. All these problems here stem on the fact of when these are challenged, how are you? Where are you? There's only one answer. And if you're Adam and you're asked, where are you? What will be the response? You're Adam. You know you messed up. Was it a day, a year, a million years? I don't know. But there was a point where God said, where are you? It was a moment of reckoning. For me, it was the biggest conflict. It's when the universe shook and the greatest question was asked. And one day I left church on Forgiveness Sunday, and I was so mad at Adam because I said, there's only one response and you didn't do it. We won't be in this mess. What's the only response? Anyone? Where are you? Here I am. For Adam to say, here, where are you? Most people say, here, I'm here, Lord, I'm here. But check this out, and this is what's happening here. Where are you, All-Star? Where are you, Dad? Where are you? Rebel, where are you? There's no room to be honest. And he was not able to be honest. So what happened is, this happened to him. There was a disconnect. Scared the bejeebies out of him. And when you're like this, are you here? Are these people like this? Yeah, they're walking around disconnected. And you know when you're walking around disconnected, you can't talk about how disconnected you are because you get in trouble. So here's the deal. The problems happen in life. As simple as this. Because we're created, like George did such a beautiful job to tell us, we're created for connection and authenticity. But the problem is, and I just talked to somebody just 10 minutes ago, how do I be authentic to somebody who's my superior? Can I really say that to them? How can I be authentic to my wife? So God asked him a question. And when we have a question to be authentic or connected, what do most people give up if there's a choice between the two? This is what happened in the garden. There's a choice between being connected or authentic. What do most people give up? Authenticity, because why? Because I'm dying. I cannot not be connected. I love my God, and if I tell him the truth, I'm afraid I'm going to be disconnected. So I got to play the lie and be lying and not know that I'm lying. So Adam couldn't tell him the truth. So he had and it says in the scriptures, he became afraid. He became ashamed and embarrassed. All of us, it's your story, my story, when we're not authentic. And then he starts hiding. Then he starts, what does he do? Lying, and then he starts blaming. So the deal is in our journey in our life is how are we going to create space so we can enter the heart? And I want to share a quote from, and then I want to practice stepping into our heart. St. Theophan the Recluse, pretty tough guy, if you read him. He has a pretty powerful quote. He says, he's talking to you and me. Listening? You got to get out of your head and into your heart. Right now, your thoughts are in your head and God seems to be outside of you. Your prayer and your spiritual exercises also remain exterior. As long as you are in your head, you will never master your thoughts, which continue to whirl around your head like a bunch of mosquitoes on a summer's heat or drifting snow on a winter storm. If you descend into your heart, you'll have no more difficulties, your mind will empty out, and your thoughts will dissipate. Thoughts are always in your mind, chasing one another about, and you'll never manage to get them under control. But, that's what happened to the prodigal. But, he came to his senses, but he was authentic. But he was going to face what he couldn't face when he left his house. And what are challenges he had going back to the house. So he came to his senses, and what did he say? He came to his senses, and he says, I will get up and go. And this is the challenge we have for this Pascha season. To get up and go where? And like George said, back home. Back to Jesus. Back to our heart. So he goes, but if you enter your heart, and you can remain there, then every time your thoughts invade, you will only have to descend into your heart once again, and your thoughts will vanish into thin air. This is your safe haven. Don't be lazy. You will find life in your heart. You will find life in your heart. There is life. And I maintain the most neglected relationship we have in the universe. You know who it is? With ourselves. Because if we had the courage to do this, and I'm going to set the stage here, I'm going to have you listen to something and see where your heart goes. And I'm not talking about the pump. I'm not talking, because I have 7 stents, so my pump heart, I'm talking about the heart that we meet Jesus. I'm talking about the heart that the noose, that the Father's talking about, the noose, where there's power, and there's energy, and there's truth, and there's identity. We're all looking for identity. So many people are so sick now because they have to redefine themselves. And the church is saying, and George says, so well, we got to go back to our original beauty, but what if we never had original beauty because our families were so hurt? And the church has said, I'm going to be your father and your mother. Listen to me. Like one of the people said in our group this morning, I think he was saying, God was with me even though I didn't know God was with me in my life. When I look back, he allowed me to move this way so I can become healed. So I want you to listen to this and see where you go. See what happens to your body. And we have to open up a space so we can allow what George has been saying so beautifully and Presbytera has been sharing so beautifully, to open a space so we can meet there. to meet at this holy place. Before I play this, a story for me was on Pascha, of all days, Pascha. I was heading the altar boy group. I wasn't a priest yet. And one of the boys would come every week, every day. Really faithful kid. And I told the guys, please don't wear tennis shoes, wear black shoes. This kid wore white tennis shoes. The most stupid thing I did is I told the kid, I'm sorry, you can't go out for the procession. Stupid, I claim it. Foul, bad, not good, I redo it. Really ridiculous. I did it though, we had like 20 guys, so it wasn't a big deal. He didn't think it was a big deal. So we went out for the procession, and as we came in, Christos, Christ is risen. Everything's joyful, powerful, beautiful. Coming to the altar, all the kids come in, I go in the altar, I'm sitting on the side, Christo, and we say it over and over. It's such a joy. Christo, oh, son. And there's a door on the side that goes outside the altar. And all of a sudden, I see this man on the side of my eyes. His veins are busting out. He's like drunk in the altar in Pascha. He's walking in, and he's almost trips over himself. He had to go over 2 steps. He grabs me while they're saying, Christos, and then he rips and he pulls me on. I'm thinking, if I start a fight with him, because I'm a wrestler, I got to take him down during Pascha. No, not a good idea. So can you imagine flying through the altar in Christ? So I take him in the back. I guide him out. I said, what's going on, Jim? You ruined my Pascha. My grandson wasn't allowed to go out. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me tell you why. I don't care why. Right? His amygdala, his reaction was pop. He wasn't able to, his heart was so hurt because there's something about his boy coming out, and I ruined it for him. My point is, I think if I wasn't in that peaceful place, because that whole week, something about slowing down, listening from another place for me, thank God, because I talk about a 30 centimeter descent, 30 centimeters from here to here. And I'm going to play this because as I was coming into Denver, I was playing this on my computer for like 20 minutes. And it's so beautiful, the mountains and the sky. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, look at what we can do. We can go into outer space. This is so beautiful. It's amazing. God's creation. And now we want to go to Mars. And now we want to applaud the human mind that we can do space travel. And the church is saying, can we stop, please? It's not about outer space. It's not about outer space. It's about going to that sacred space of the eternity, inner space. And that's what he's been talking about this whole time. And that's what happens when we X out. This is what the devil wants. X out, and then that becomes your identity. And there's no way to step into that sacred place. So I want you to, going back to Adam, all he had to say is, this is what the only response for him to reconnect. When we reconnect, when you reconnected, it's almost like there's an Aikido move called Wu-Wei. Wu-Wei is when you ground yourself. It's like active non-doing, like you're present. You're waiting for something, so whenever something happens, you can just make the move and redirect the energy towards your advantage. All Adam needed to do was this. Usually I swear, but I won't swear. Oh, shoot! Lord! I can't believe every day I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Every day I wanted to come to you and beg for your forgiveness. I can't tell you how I decided to do that. Every day I decided to do it. I never did it, but right now I want to say on my knees and beg for you, I am so sorry. Boom. You know what that would have done? Peace. We're talking about peace. When you're authentic and you're connected, you have peace. Don't you want that? The church is saying, this is what we want for you. This is what Pascha is about. not about fasting only. It's not about coming to church only. It's about the selfish desire. And only work is to discover who you are so you can be close to Jesus, so you can become one. So you can know who he is, and he's going to help reveal himself to you. So listen to this, and I just want to ask you where you go when you sit with this. This holy place in our heart, we all run away from. I think George said it so well. Our authentic self becomes so familiar, it's not really ourself. So you might wonder why I'm having this next clip up. Anyone see Charlie Brown's Christmas? Huh? You might think, what are you sharing that with us for, Father Tom? Well, I think Charlie Brown is a lot of us. So he goes and he wants to go and buy a Christmas tree. Remember that scene? Some of you that haven't seen it, he goes and buys a Christmas tree, and he goes to the lot. It's the last tree. It's the most pathetic looking tree. And he's there with Linus, and he says, well, we'll just pick it up. We'll take it to the gang. And he takes it to his friends, and they all start laughing at him. Oh, what kind of stupid tree was that? Blah, blah, blah. They make fun of him. Charlie Brown, you're so stupid. And then he goes, I shouldn't have picked that tree out. Everything I do turns into disaster, he says. I guess I really don't know what Christmas is about, he said. And then he looks up in the air, he goes, does anyone know what Christmas is about? Does anyone know what Pascha is about? Linus comes out, and he's never done this before. In the 50 years, I don't know if Charles Schultz did it by mistake or intentionally. He comes out and he goes, I can tell you what Christmas is about, Charlie Brown. You know what he does? Do you know that he did this? He put his blanket down. Peace. He's going to talk about peace. And he tells a story about Jesus. And that's what Christmas is about. So when I ask you what Pascha is about, I'd like for you to write down on your, we're not going to interact right now for this piece, but I'd like for you to write down, if you had to tell somebody what Pascha is about, and George has done such an incredible job, because this is what Pascha is about. It's messy. Jesus went to hell for you and me. And the iconography is stunning. There's chains and stepping on the doors that kept us blocked out. And he will find you in the end. He's going to find you. He's going to find all of us. So instead of just putting Easter's about Christ's resurrection, I'd like for you to expand, if you can just spend 3 minutes. You had to explain to a non-believer, an atheist. That's a beautiful icon there. What would you, I'm going to give you 3 minutes if you can write in your little book. Just, if you put down, what is Pascha all about? 3 minutes. Something about writing is important. I'd like for you to pray about really this question, and I want you to tussle with it. Because Christmas is about, and Easter is about, everything that we've been sharing with you in the past 2 days is to have the courage to know your story. And our story is everyone here is created in an image and likeness of God. And to remember that. Your story is that you are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Did you wake up this morning thinking of the temple? I want you to write that. I want you to write these things down. This is what I want you to remember. I know we don't live it out. I know it's far-fetched for a lot of people, but this is what our church is saying in such a beautiful, profound way. I want you to write down that I'm created in God's image and likeness. And you know what it says in Genesis? And you have his DNA. Anyone done it? Any Ancestry.com? Well, this is your Ancestry.com. This church is giving you the code. In you is the DNA, God's DNA. Did you wake up this morning thinking you have God's DNA? Put it on your paper and say it every day, because the church is saying, I want you to live in truth. The truth is in Corinthians 1:16. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? So are you walking around somebody that's spilling gunk and yuck? Or are you walking around the temple of the Holy Spirit trying your best to forgive, to live, to love, to have peace, to be open in your heart to receive that light and to be a light, to be a vessel that you get to co-create with God his salvation history? We have to remember who we are in his image. And there's a few other things I'm going to shift gears here, and I really think it's important. Our church talks about waking up and really, like George said, do soul searching, to wake up out of the sleep of, what did you say, George? With self-awareness becomes familiar. So the familiar self is what we all live. And God wants to continue scraping off all that's not you so you can be fully awake in that grace, so you can become a light in the world. You know what else he said to you in Matthew chapter 4? That you are the light of the world. Did you wake up this morning thinking you're the light of the world? Probably not. So I want you to say right now, I'm the light of the world.
I'm the light of the world.
Can you say it again?
I'm the light of the world.
I shared this in my church once, and it was a packed church, and I asked them to say it. You know how they said it? I'm the light of the world. You don't believe it, do you? Can you say it louder? I'm the light of the world. No, please, I didn't say it. Jesus says you're the light of the world. Could you say it, repeat after me after he said it to you? I'm the light of the world. They could, okay, you can't say it. I know you're self-conscious, it's church, whatever. So why don't you say it to the person next to you? And it was booming. You are the light of the world. And if we can treat each person as they're the light of the world, and we're the light of the world, striving for that, cleansing ourselves for that, begging for that, what a life we will have. And I want to share a story, and then I'm going to sing a song. I've never sang in front of people. I'm not a singer. And this is a big stretch for me. I play a little guitar. But I met this guy, and you want to know who Daniel Johnstone is? He's a dead man. I met him. He died 5 years ago. He grew up in West Virginia, conservative Christian family. He wanted to be a songwriter and an artist. His parents said, no, you got to do something else to make money. He developed schizophrenia. He developed mental illness. He left the house in West Virginia, flew out to be with his brother in Austin to start a music career. He started working for McDonald's. What do you think when you think about people working at McDonald's? You have these idea judgments already. Working for McDonald's. And he would record a tape, a cassette tape. In the 80s this was. You know those old cassette tapes where you push the play and the record? And he would take those cassette tapes and he'd bring them and give it to anyone that came into McDonald's. You want to hear my song? And everyone was original, because he can get duplicates back then. Like we can dub it. Everyone was original. Within months or years, I don't know, he became kind of famous. He got a gig with MTV, became famous there, and then he got a $100,000 gig with Atlantic Records, and his mental illness really took over him. And what happened is he was institutionalized for 5 months. With everyone's idea of who he is, he was the waste and a waste in society. He wrote a song about the devil knows me and I know the devil. I think this man was so connected to God in some wild way, but was so squeezed in that he couldn't express his heart in a way except maybe through his music. His dad came and picked him up from the hospital. He had an airplane, single engine. Flying back home, Daniel Johnston had an attack up in the midair. He started freaking out, reaches over, grabs the keys, turns the motor off, throws the keys out of the window. And his dad's a true story. His dad said, I remember in flight school that you look for trees to soften your landing. And to make a long story short, he landed with the trees, the plane's upside down, and they were both safe. And he ended up getting Parkinson's, and he died 5 years ago. But Father Rob Spiliastos sang this song at a clergy couples retreat. And when I heard this song, I started bawling. The song is, God will find you in the end. That's the kind of God we have. And to find you because he loves you. Everything George was talking about is because his love. And the devil doesn't want you to have any taste of that. So when I heard this song, I thought, oh my gosh, I was obsessed with the guy, and I just had to find out about this dead person that impacted me with this one song. There's only 8 sentences here. There's 4 chords here. And I'm going to play it as best I can for you, and then we'll shift gear. I just have a guitar somewhere. Oh, there it is. I'm really going on a limb here, okay? Actually, I shared that. I sang it together with Father Rob at our crab feed in Seattle. So this is the first time I'm doing it by myself. So. This is the kind of God we have. I think he wrote this song because he wanted to be married, and he talked about a woman to be married to. And I don't know, we're getting ready for for Holy Week in several months, and I don't know if you really realize the bridegroom services. You know, there's a famous hymn there. Behold, the bridal chamber is your bridal chamber adorned. How's it go? Behold, the bridegroom cometh in the middle of the night. Is your bridal chamber ready? And you know, we get to become his bride, men and women. What do you do in a bridal chamber? You can say it. You consummate the relationship. This is the beauty of our church. Jesus wants to become one with you. This is the story of the Orthodox Church. What a beautiful thing. We get wrapped up in genitals when we think about that. But really, it's about union, total union of what George is talking about. This is nothing compared to the infinity of what our heart is about, that we have no clue. The energy there, the beauty there, the love there, the compassion there. So I'll do my best to sing it to you, and especially pay attention to the last 4 or 5 verses. Don't make fun. His voice wasn't that good, so my voice is not that good. So Daniel, here you go. True love will find you in the end. You'll just find out who was just your friend. Don't be sad, I know you will. Don't give up until your love will find you in the end. This promise comes with a catch. Only if you're looking will it find you. True love is searching too. How can it recognize you unless you step into the light, the light, the light? Don't be sad, I know you will. But don't give up until true love will find you in the end. I'll conclude with this. True love will find anyone. And we think we're so cool because we're Orthodox. Jesus didn't come up just for you. He came here for the sinner, the unbeliever, the straight, the gay, the liberal, the conservative. He came for everyone. This is the God that we have, and he's asking you to be the same kind of example in this world that desperately needs this kind of heart in this world, because true love will find you in the end. And that's what happened in the prodigal son. He decided to step into the light. And I'm going to finish with this. This promise has a catch. Listen, this promise has a catch. That's what George has been talking about. Only if you're looking. Are you looking? What are you looking for? Only if you're looking will it find you. Only if you're looking will God find you. He's available. Because you know what? True love is searching too. God is searching too. But unless you step into the light, the light, the light, how can it find you? And this is what the prodigal son finally, and I was thinking about this when I gave a sermon a while ago about him. How many times did he decide to go back home? But didn't. How many times do you decide to love, to extend, to embrace, to give, but you don't? May we take this as a challenge, because this lady, I told you my last story, this lady that was found on the streets in Seattle, a friend of mine, Steve Long, was a chaplain at Harborview Hospital. She was brought in emaciated, gaunt, smelling like urine, homeless, brought into the hospital. She had full-blown cancer. And Steve goes to her, Mary, what's going on here? You're always smiling. You're joyous. I don't get it. She goes, Steve, I don't know. I can't tell you. I love my God. Homeless lady. I love my God. He let me live this long so I can forgive everybody that hurt me. He let me live this long so I can forgive everybody that hurt me. This is what we talk about, descending into your heart. Learning from a mental ill person and a homeless person, this unworthy priest, is down on my knees, realizing how God will find you in the end. Amen. Sorry about that.
Father, it's evident when someone shares from their heart how much comes to us. And as you receive in your heart, I wanted to take a moment, and then Prespa's going to take a moment, and then we'll take a break. During the time that we were listening to the Kyrie eleison chanting, you went on your journey, I went on my journey. And as I was hearing Kyrie eleison, and I was considering the journey we took, I thought of the icon of descent into Hades, which then becomes the resurrection. I got it right here. And a funny thing about this photo to the right, that's a picture I actually took of your icon over here. I visited before, I knew many of you when you guys had the 8-date series, and I showed up on the 8th date. It's kind of like a reality show, Orthodox style. And my daughter was going through something. And somewhere during that date, I just wandered over there, and because I love that icon, and it's the one very similar to that one I have at home. And something I do, I decided I would pass along to her. And that is, I took a picture of the icon of Christ and Adam and Eve, and then I zoomed in on the wrist. And that wrist is what speaks to me. What's happening there? In their powerlessness, in their death, he's pulling them up. So I edited it and sent it over to her. And I reminded her that I was with her. And that God's with her. And what she was feeling was just powerlessness of what was going on for her. I said, I'm praying for you, and just look at that wrist and just know that God's pulling you up. Don't wait to feel empowered. Don't wait to feel worthy. Don't wait for the anxiety to go away. Just know if you feel powerless, we say, Kitty Lason. That's our cry. Because we can say that cry when we're powerless. Lord, have mercy. I said, just when you can, just pray that, and you'll feel the tug on your wrist. And sometime, I don't know how much time went by, and she texted me, Dad, I feel the tug. And if my job was done that day, I would have been happy. And anything I ever want to pass on to my kids is that they would know that this life is not filled with empowerment, it's filled with powerlessness. And as we even visit our story, we might encounter our own powerlessness of what can show up in us due to our injuries. But we encounter that powerlessness, then we say, Kitty Lason, Lord, have mercy. And he'll pull us up in the way that we need most. And so we have the cry of our heart, which is the Lord, have mercy. Whether you pray for mercy to help you with that connection with yourself, or you need mercy in your connection with other people, or you need mercy and you feel powerless in your connection with God. With your own phones, you can take a picture of the wrist and just wait for the tug. It's going to happen. Thank you. Press Pat.
So I just have a couple things before we break. And like your sweet story, our personal stories are really what speak to us. And as a mom and as a parent, how many of you have had your fair share of tugs and pulls and difficulties in family life? Raise your hand if you've ever experienced that. Okay, we're all in the same wonderful, lovely boat of trying to get through life in very messy circumstances. Marcos and Alexia, will you come help me? They're my favorite new couple, I just want you to know. Marcos is my nephew, Alexia, you know. And I want to share with you guys, you're going to help me with this, a tug of war that we often do with our children. Now, these guys are a couple, so we can also do it with a couple, but you take that, and we're going to tug a war, okay? This is a tug of war.
She's going to break it.
And Alexia is Mama, okay? Mama Alexia. Say hi, Mama Alexia.
Hi, Mom Alexia.
And Marcos is son Marcos.
Son Marcus.
Son Marcos, okay?
Son Marcos.
And there's so much love between Mama Alexia and son Marcos. There's just so much love. But life goes on, and Mama Alexia, like Mama Panayota and Mama Pat, wants more than anything for Marcos to be successful, to Marcos to get well and do good and well in school, for Marcos to make good decisions, to Marcos to have a prosperous, wonderful, loving, Orthodox life, right? And that's all she wants. But Marcos is trying to just figure life out, and he's trying to figure himself out as an adolescent teenager, and he's just really frustrated with school, with life. He'd rather play video games. He'd rather do all sorts of things that distract him from real life. And Mama Alexia is continually in a tug of war, okay? This tug of war. So you guys pull at each other. And what are you feeling when you're pulling at each other? Tension. What do you feel? Resistance, tension, resistance. It happens in all of our families like this. It happens, this pull. And then you keep pulling, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Okay, you guys, great, fantastic. Okay, so they're pulling and they're pulling. Okay, so this is my story with my daughter. My daughter is the most fabulous, wonderful, amazing person. And I love her so much. But I always wanted to, one, help, rescue, save, make sure everything was okay. Did I want her to ever fall down? No. I wanted to pull her up. I wanted to be that safety net. I wanted life to be just easy and good. That all happened because I was in here, the pleaser, the all-star, the mascot. I did all these things. And we all bring these things to our
She's
lives.
high-functioning.
A high-functioning mascot. But we bring these things to our family. We bring these things to life. And I think when we have this tug of war and we have this pull, we have to make a decision with everyone that we love. And usually the person on the other end is somebody really important to us. It's our daughter, it's our son, it's our mother, it's our father, it's our spouse.
Priest.
It's our priest, sure. It's a really important relationship that's usually at the other end, okay? So what I'm saying is, then there's this woman who's by name's Mel Robbins. Somebody sent me a video of her. Do you listen to her sometimes? And there's this mother-daughter pull, and my friend said, listen to this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the tug of war that I do with my daughter. And she said this thing. She created this let them theory. Have you heard of it? Some of you might have if you have Instagram come your way. And this let them theory is all about how do you let go of the rope. And you stop the game when you're playing tug of war. Somebody's got to win. And if Marcos pushes really hard, Alexia's going to fall. And if she pushes really hard, he's going to fall. But if you just let go of the rope, the game is over. The game is over. The game is over, letting go of that rope. And I honestly, when we do the work with family wellness, I think to myself, man, if I would have known this when I was 32 years old, I would have just had such a better life. Like such a better life if I learned how to let go of the rope, okay? Because when we let go of the control, we want to let go of it. And we can then enter into that really sacred space of actually learning how to listen, learning how to hear the real inner heart and life of the story of these two people. And then you can see change actually happening. Thank you guys so much. You were wonderful. Give them a hand. Yay. Okay. So I put this little slide up here as the let go and let them. And I say this because this gentleman, who I actually found on Instagram one day, and I thought, this is kind of brilliant parenting. And it's really about what it means to let go. So I want you to just hear this little clip, and then we'll just have a brief little conversation.
Listen. This is so important. Parents are awful at listening.
You've heard of active listening. So active listening, it's like so simple. Child says it. Before you give your 2 cents, just repeat it back. And sort of listen to feelings behind words. I want to have blue hair. And then what my dad would have said, I want to have blue hair. No way in hell, as long as you live in my house, you can have blue hair. But what does that do? It just shuts down the conversation. or starts to fight. Like, oh, you want to have a bear? And then just be quiet. And then the child might say, everyone's doing that. My dad would say, I don't care what anyone else is doing, as long as we leave this house, we're not going to have a bear. If they're going to jump off a cliff, we're going to go with them. Not helpful. Sounds like you want to be like the other kids. And then he might say, sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. Which is really the conversation you want to have. It's just helpful to listen. If you have time and you have listening, you bond, and then the kids tend to pick your values because they're bonded. And then when they make a mistake, don't rescue them. Today, parents do way too much for their children, and they steal their self-esteem. I often say, if you do too much for your kids, you build your self-esteem by stealing theirs. Shut up. Listen.
Oh, gosh.
I know, powerful, right? So I guess that's the little tiny piece of my heart I wanted to share with you is in life, in order to navigate peace, we may need to shut up and listen. And we may be able to think about new ways that we can answer and respond to our family system in new ways that we might not try to rescue, but we would let them find their way. Let them find their way. So as we break today, we have 15 minutes to just kind of breathe and chat with one another, go outside, go to the bathroom, take a break, and then we're going to wrap it up with the final session, which is about our thoughts determine our lives. And we just want to thank you for just being such a magnificent group of people. I was so grateful today when Father Evan was giving confession to the little children, and I know you guys saw that, and I thought to myself, this is love in action. This is the prodigal coming back to the son. This is...
It's probably the battery.
Oh, that was just one finger, wow. This is the most healthy parish because of what you saw there. Little children being shepherded by the dad of this family, holding them in their, even if it's not even anything, they have a place to put their hearts and be real and honest about something. It may have taken 3 minutes, but that little act of love from a father, let's just say glory to God, because that is a gift. So Father Evan, thank you. Amen. All right, so we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back here. What time is it really now? Quick. Oh, it's 3:15? Okay, we'll be back at 3:30, and then we'll have a half-hour wrap-up. Okay.